if you need to.
Yeah. Okay. All right, y'all ready to rock?
Yeah.
What's going on, Vern? You good?
Yeah, man. Just
Vern, what's up? What's going on, brother?
What's going on, bro? What's going on?
Hey, Vern.
All right.
Hey.
All right, let's jump into it. What's good? You two Apartment 5B, hosted by your man, Kel. I got my squad in effect with me, as always. Ladies first, Porsche. What's going on, miss?
How's it going, Kel?
Everything is good. Everything is good. You know, you got the late big Christopher Wallace in the background, so I always love seeing that. You know what I mean? My brother JP, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Oh man, it's good. Good to get you back on, man. You know, I know it's a million things going on, but
happy
always
to be back
to chop it up. My brother Vern out the ATL. What's going on?
Man, glad to be here. How y'all doing tonight?
No doubt, Vern. You everywhere, man. Like you're everywhere. Like you know, you're the closer. I'm like this nigga had soccer games. He had football games. You had
I see you on the gram. I see you.
This dude got see you like the Spike Lee of Atlanta. I'm like this nigga. If there's a sporting event in ATL, this dude hit me like, yo, I gotta go to a soccer game. I'm like, this nigga going to a soccer game.
Yeah. We got a suite at the company got a suite at the spot. So, you know, I like soccer as you. I mean, hey, I got on a soccer jersey right now.
Okay.
But so I'm sorry, Porsche. But
yeah, all good.
Yo, one of the funniest stories I'll never forget about soccer. It's not a story, but on The Wire, when McNulty was with Bubs, and he was like, "Yeah, I got to pick up my kid from soccer," and Bubs was like, "Suck what? Like suck it, suck what? Like you know what I mean?" So, you know, just like hood niggas don't know nothing about no damn soccer. I don't know. Porsche, you got the topic for us this week. Why don't you give us a little background on where this came from and what we chopping up about this week?
Okay. Basically, I was listening to a interview that Sophia Chang, who I love, I think she's so brilliant. She's an absolute amazing woman. Was talking about how, you know, just her whole career inside of hip hop and how she kind of, you know, buddied up with the Wu members and her relationships with people within the genre and culture and all that. And in part of the interview, she says that she grew out of hip hop. It's not her job anymore because she was a talent. She found talent for Jive Records back in the day, and she would sign people. And then someone was like coming up to her and saying like, "Oh, do you think this person would make it? If like, would they be signed?" And she was like, "It's not my job anymore. I don't know." And hip hop is I've outgrown it. So then I kind of got to thinking is that possible? Like, I don't know. I respect what she says. I agree with part of it, but I don't know that I am comfortable with the whole concept of I've outgrown hip hop. So that's how it came about.
No doubt. So we're going to be looking at, for people who didn't see it, there's one quote that we're going to be looking at. And it's what Porsche said. It's, I grew out of hip hop. It's not my job anymore. Hip hop is more youth based. It's made by the young, for the young, and about the young. So what we're going to do is look at that quote. We're going to chop it up in those three pieces. So the first thing we're going to tackle is I grew out of hip hop, you know, and is that something, you know, Vern, I want to say if folk want to tell their age, you know, they can kind of talk about their you know, where they are. But we're kind of just going to be talking about at first, like, have you outgrown hip hop? Like I was telling JP off camera, numerous people have asked me throughout the years, like, yo, you still listen to hip hop? Like, you still make hip hop? Like, you still make beats? Like, why, bro? Like, if you haven't blown up yet, why are you still doing that? Type, and it's crazy to me, but we're gonna get into that. So, Vern, let's go JP first. JP, have you outgrown hip hop? And do you think that is something that can even happen?
For me personally, absolutely not. I've not grown out of hip hop, and I probably will never grow out of hip hop. But I can see from a certain perspective, certain people growing out of it, but that's just, it doesn't happen to be me. You know, I feel like we're in an interesting place because, you know, we coming up, our favorite MCs like Rakims and Kanes and the G-Raps and
you know what, JP, hold on for 1 sec. Could you tell your age just so when people hear your era, they know what you're talking about?
3 weeks away from being 47 years old. 2 weeks, actually. 2 weeks.
There you go.
Yeah, 72, baby. I hear you.
Yeah, so I think we're in an interesting space because I feel like hip hop has grown with us, you know, the people who have grown up in the culture. And now, you know, some of our the rappers that we grew up with, as they started to get older, we started to pay less attention to them. I feel like, like the rappers from the 80s, we started to pay less attention to in the 90s as the 90s started coming with, with Tribe and Black Moon. So we started paying less attention to G-Rap and Kane. Even though they were still making records, it wasn't as popular. And that was a shift. So now I feel like I was trying to think about this earlier when you sent me the topic, Kill, about who was the first rapper to make an album after 40. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like now that so many of us are getting older, we just don't stop loving the music. I feel like certain generations of hip hop, we're not the target audience for anymore, and I'm fine with that. Like, the Meg Thee Stallions and all the young, the Migos and all those younger, we're not the target audience, and I can appreciate some of that music, but I'm not invested in it all the way when I used to be, because I'm not of that age. We have other priorities now. When we were younger, we didn't have the priority like bills and kids and spouses and all that. Yeah. So all we had to do was pay attention to the music, and that was fine. But now we still love the music, but we still have other priorities. So that take precedence. That doesn't mean we stop loving the music.
Right.
We just don't maybe not listen to it as soon as it drops because we got other things, or we may not buy a album because some bills got to get paid first. You know what I'm saying? So, but I feel like you don't stop loving the music after a certain age bracket. Like, you still love the music; it still moves you. Like, even the younger stuff still moves me. But now we have rappers our age still making music for us that we are the target audience for. It's not the big audience or the audience that gets played on radio every day and stuff like that. But there's an audience out there in our age group that still is for us. So for me personally, I'm never going to grow out of hip hop.
All right. Now I feel you on that. Porsche, what about you, miss?
Yeah, I
23 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Everyone knows I'm eternally 23. That's the age I'm sticking with. But no, for real, I'm not that much younger than you guys. I know I don't look it, but I'm not that much younger. People always tell me like you look like you're 22, and that's why I stuck with 23. But no, I don't think you can outgrow hip hop, and I'm kind of maybe a little bit more sensitive on this topic because for me, on a previous show, I mentioned that all my life, like as a kid listening to hip hop, throughout my adolescence, throughout my teenagerhood and young adult life, and then full adult, I've always been told like, oh, hip hop is just a phase. You'll grow out of it. Like, yeah, I used to listen to hip hop too, but then you get older and then you realize, and I'm like, what does that even mean? So for me, I've always been like that. Like, it just never made sense to me that you would grow out of it. And that's because I love hip hop through and through. It's been with me, like I said, since I was a kid, like 6, 7, like very, very young, and all throughout my life. So yeah, I don't think that you can outgrow it. And I completely agree with JP. I think that there is grown rap, and a perfect example of that for me is like Scarface. Scarface has albums where he talks about growing up, having a kid, focusing on life, focusing on being an adult, what he used to do when he was younger, how he learned, how he, sat with adults and his family members and that kind of thing. Like, JP's absolutely right. There is grown people rap. It's not restricted to a demographic. It's not. And yeah, like that's pretty much what I think.
All right, no doubt. Vern, what about you, good brother? In age, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. I'm 47 years old. So I agree with both of y'all, but not to the extent that you guys said. Yeah, I mean, you love hip hop. I love hip hop. I always will love hip hop, but I'm not as interested in it as I used to be. And I'll say this. Even the legacy MCs that I grew up on, I'm really not as interested in their newer stuff as I am in their classic stuff. So I listen to hip hop. I'll listen to stuff that I hear y'all talk about just to make sure, if y'all talk about it, I respect it. Give it a listen. But if I'm being honest, most of the hip hop I listen to is the stuff that I listened to when I was deeply embedded into hip hop, you know, and a part of it for me, I mean, I think I take hip hop and add it to everything I do in my life in sales. And when even when I teach Sunday school, there's a portion of when I used to MC that I apply to it because that's just a part of who I am. But what was I going to say? But I'm just not as invested as I was, and I mean, I'm really not as interested. The new stuff that I'm interested in gives me elements of the classic stuff that I grew up on or that I fell in love with. But that other stuff, I mean, I won't go as far as diss it and say it's garbage. A lot of it is to me, but some of it you can hear the skill level. It's just not geared towards a 47-year-old dude who's trying to pay off a mortgage and you know and that type of thing. And I understand that. Just like when we fell in love with hip hop, you know, my boy was just talking about Brand Nubian. As soon as I hear Slow Down, I'm back at Georgia State, ninth grade, about to go to a party at a club called Texas. So that evokes a feeling in me that this newer stuff won't do, because again, I'm thinking about getting up in the morning and go doing a sales meeting. So it doesn't have it doesn't have the same feeling. So it's more almost nostalgia, and I'm cool with that. And I don't have to get the golden backpack award anymore because I know who I am. So I hope that answered the question.
No doubt, 100%. And for me, the funny thing is when Porsche hit me with the topic, you know, just can you outgrow hip hop? I haven't watched the interview yet. It was just like, I can't outgrow hip hop because I'm hip hop. Right. You know what I mean? And I don't mean to sound like some KRS that I'm hip hop, but it literally is like before, you know, I got saved and gave my life to Christ. I always would tell people the closest thing I have to a religion was hip hop. Mm-hmm. You know, that's how I lived my life. Like, yo, there's no biting. You know what I mean? I'm not JP. You remember we ain't using other people's samples people done use. Like It was literally like how Vern said, like hip hop. No matter what I do, if it's marriage coaching, it's something hip hop in it. If I'm doing something with my kids, it's something hip hop in it. Like no matter where I'm at, hip hop is going to come out because that's just part of me. So I can't outgrow it. One of the things that I've learned, and JP and I went to Morgan together. A lot of the people I realized, JP, in our era, and you too, Vern, in that 80s era, everybody, if you were in the Black community, you listened to hip hop. Right. You know what I'm saying? But there's a big difference between listening to hip hop and loving the culture. They're two totally different things. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. Now, a lot of shorties, you know, listen to hip hop and would dance to hip hop with Salt and Pepper and choir, you know, and do all the dance steps. But those shorties to me, like for every one shorty who I knew who wrote rhymes, it was like 80 other shorties who just listened, didn't care nothing about the credits or nothing about that or anything like that. So, and even at Morgan, I realized there was a lot of people who just liked hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't love it. They weren't heads. They weren't hip hop heads. Because for me, I'll say it like this. I used to do 88.9. There's no way you could be a hip hop head and have not come through that station. It's impossible. And if you knew me, because you'd be like, yo, Kill, let me come through. Like any given day, Thursday afternoon, my man Ray hit me. Yo, Ray and Ghost coming through for an interview. Like there's no way. Like that'd be like if you love basketball, Vern, and your man got the Phillips Center. He's in charge of it. You could come down and hang out with Trey Young and all the Hawks and see everybody. That you can't tell me you love hooping and your man's is right there and you don't take him up on that opportunity. So a lot of people just listen to hip hop. So I get it when people are saying things like, yo, Kill, you still listen to hip hop? It's like, yeah, nigga, like, why wouldn't I not listen to hip hop anymore? But I get it for certain people as they've graduated and they've moved on in life. And I joke with people, and it's like the Real Housewives of Atlanta, the Real Housewives of Upper Marlboro, the Real Housewives of White Marsh. You know, there's a point where you're like, I don't listen to that music anymore. Like, what is wrong with you? I have a master's degree. It's beneath me. I have a PhD. Why would I be listening to Brand Nubians? That's when I was a child. So I get it that when people feel that way, but it's just like, I feel like it's messed up. I feel like it's like, damn, nobody, you know, for people to ask me like, yo, Kill, you still make beats? Like, why? Like, and it kills me because my mother's a jazz musician. Nobody's coming into her house talking about, Kathy, why do you still have this piano? Like, what is this? You know what? Saxophone, a flute, a drum. What? Nobody's even thinking that rationale. But when it comes to hip hop, I feel like in the part that, and I'm like you, Porsche, I'm offended that y'all are still treating this like a fad. Like it's been around for 40 years. It's made billions of dollars. It's made more millionaires for young black kids than any other thing that you could think of. And y'all mofos still treating this like it's breakdancing, because breakdancing did get played out. You know what I mean? It became a time where you just couldn't do it no more.
Like I see it like people view it as sort of like a stepping stone into growth or something. Like you sort of have to like step over it to kind of get to where you're going. And it's not like I don't know. I never rhymed. I'm not an MC. I'm not a producer. I didn't ever do graph. I didn't ever like do anything inside of the culture, but I was always immersed in the culture, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. And sometimes I think that when people say that, it's because either they take, like, a lot of times, and this is more for like my cousins and friends in the States, is that, and I'm not talking about like you guys, I'm talking about like, you know, actual real people. You guys are real people. I just have never met you guys in real life.
Avatars now?
I meant like people I've actually hung out with. I wish I could hang out with you guys. No. But like for me, I feel like it's been taken for granted because it's always been there. And so it's kind of like, well, everywhere I went, hip hop was always around. People were in LA, people were in, you know, New York, people were in these big cities that had such a vibrant hip hop culture living there. And for me, it was never like that. Like I had to literally go and find hip hop. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have the luxury of just going to the store and getting this and that. Things were like not allowed in the country. ODB.
Of course. Let them know where you live. So
I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is above North Dakota. So it's like flat and boring. And anyways, you guys know. And then I moved to Vancouver, where I am now. And Vancouver is where I was able to find, there was a hip hop culture, a little bit of one, in the early to mid 90s. So I was able to take advantage of that. And that's where a lot of it sort of like just erupted for me because it was so accessible. But I still had to, every single time it was like, what's new? Where can I get it? Go get the Source magazine edition, the Vibe. Like I was buying every single magazine all the time because that's the only access I had. Whereas other people are like, yeah, I went outside and people were like rhyming outside, and I went outside and there was like breakdancing, and then someone was walking by with a boombox. Like I never got that. So for me, it was sort of like this thing that was, I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it. I just feel like sometimes people maybe take it for granted and that's why, but I don't want to just say that about everybody, but maybe some people, I don't know.
And I think you made a great point with the stepping stone. I think a lot of people, and I think like just for me, I've realized that a lot of people were more hip hop listeners than hip hop heads. You know, when I think about my wedding party at that time in 2000, these were the 7 closest, you know, dudes in my life, and only one of them was a hip hop head. 1 out of 7. Now they're still my closest friends and all that great stuff, but at the end of the day, it was, you know, just one person. So I think that that's the thing, that 6 of my closest friends, they liked hip hop. You know, you could talk about Biggie and Jay and those people, but then if I bring up Trigger the Gambler, they may be like, who, you know, oh, dude was Smooth the Hustler. Or if you start digging a little bit deeper, you know, once you get past what was on BET and MTV and all of that, you know, then it's gonna be like Souls of Mischief. Oh, yo, I remember them, but they're not gonna know the depths of it because they just listen. You know, and those are still some of my closest friends, but they're not gonna know nothing about no Griselda. You know, they're not gonna know Pusha T has a new album out. They're not keeping up with the culture because, to be honest, they were never hip hop heads. You know what I mean? So I think that's what happens, is that for at least me, you know, I know JP's crew, the bulk of the people that I believe are closest to him were hip hop. All of them were hip hop.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's kind of like the difference. You know what I mean? If you look at his wedding party, probably everybody was a hip hop head. Where you looking at mine, only one was. You know, so I don't. Those other 6 who come to me like, damn, you really still keep up with this stuff, and I'm just like how can you not? Like, you know, like it's almost like nobody says that. Like, yo, you still watch basketball, Vern? Like, come on, Vern. Like, yo, why you still watch basketball? Like, well, yo, Vern.
You know what? And that's the thing, though. Like, they almost kind of treat it like basketball because sometimes you have to retire because you're physically not able to do what you did at 39 that you did when you were 19. And I get that. But hip hop is different. You've actually lived more life, so you should have more stuff to talk about.
Right.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? And
I
would make for a better song, better album, whatever. So I mean, it's a give and take there. I just don't understand like how people could grow. I mean, I can understand how people grow out of it. I'm never gonna grow out of it. I'm never gonna stop loving it.
And Vern, I'm gonna get to you because I know you want to say something. But JP, to your point, I think people, maybe this is the problem. People aren't outgrowing hip hop because it was never in them. See, the listener can't outgrow something that was never really there for
the casual listener.
The casual listener doesn't outgrow it because it was never in them. For something to grow, it has to be in you. For me to grow grass, I got to plant the seed and it has to grow from that. So it has to be in you. But the casual listener, it was never in them. It was just like, oh, I just watch whatever's on Rap City. I just watch whoever's on here and I just keep it moving. So I think for us, we can't outgrow it because it was in us. And like Portia said, it doesn't have to be in you because you made beats or you rhymed or you was in the studio or any of those things. It's just, I love this culture. I love everything about it. So I think we can't outgrow it. But I think the people who are coming to me aren't ex-hip hop heads. They're not ex-people who were in the game now coming to me. They were the casual listener kind of saying, wow, do you still listen to this? Vern, I want to get what you were going to say because I don't want you to lose it.
I wrote it down so I wouldn't lose it. Two things though. I agree with you, Jay Pass, but also there's a flip side to that coin. Hip hop has always been pushed as a youth thing. I mean, when we got into it, that was the first music that was ours because we grew up on Isley Brothers and all of those type of things, but that was our parents' music. Or Kill, you grew up, with Ahmad Jamal and all that stuff, but that was your mom's music. This was the first thing that was ours, so it was a youth thing. And then if we're honest, we got to think about it. Even we in the hip hop community look down on man, Kool Moe Dee, man, that's he old head. It's like we age people out of hip hop ourselves, so I can definitely understand how a casual fan of hip hop music could think, okay, yeah, man, you outgrow that type of thing because it's even done within hip hop. I mean, I'm thinking about KRS One. Let me see. Rap on the Whole isn't even 20 years old. 50 years down the line, you can spark this because we'll be the old school artists. And even at that time, so there was even schisms within hip hop of, Grandmaster Flash. Oh yeah, y'all are old. This ain't for y'all. This is us. We're the new school. Blah 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 blah. So I can get if that happened inside of hip hop, I understand how people outside of hip hop could feel that way.
Right, but don't you feel like there's a shift now because there are so many artists over the age of 35 who are still making music and are still pretty relevant. I feel like they may not be as big as the biggest artists in hip hop right now, but there is a substantial audience for the people who started out young and are getting older, but are still not stopping because they're getting older. I feel like there's a shift and there's an audience. Like you may have to manage your expectations. Yeah. Like you may not be selling out arenas. You may be selling out a 5,000 seater or 2,000 seater, but there's still an audience for it that appreciates what you make.
I agree with that.
And I think too, Vern, to your point, I know for me personally, I never wanted to age anybody out of hip hop. You know what I mean? To me, it would be like, oh, Kool Moe Dee, you whack, but it's because you whack. It's not whack. It's not like you old. It's just like, yo, that How You Like Me Now style with Rakim and G-Rap and these dudes. Now, if Kool Moe Dee could have kept up with them, God bless them. You know what I mean? If
but most of them don't. I mean, because again, even the legacy artists, their newer stuff, I listen to it out of respect for them. Right. But I ain't listen to that stuff no more.
Right. No, and I agree. And that's to the point to me to kind of what Jay was saying is that maybe that's when you casually bow out. Because that's what happened. Every era had to bow out. There was a time when Run DMC, Houdini, the Fat Boys, were the three biggest groups in the world. And then two of them had to bow out. Houdini had to gracefully bow out and say, okay, y'all, we can't do this no more. The Fat Boys had to gracefully bow out and, you know, say we can't do this no more. And Running Them only kind of kept it there just because I think at the pinnacle that they were at. And even by the time the 90s hit, even they had to get the bald heads and get all the new producers and, you know, and even they had to gracefully bow out. But look at somebody like LL, who was hitting from 84 and dropped Who Shot You in 96? You know what I mean? So this, you know, so again, I don't feel like we were aging them out. If you could still rhyme, nobody was like, when Mama Said Knock You Out, that's 91. LL dropped in 84. That's what, 7 years? That's like a lifetime in hip hop. Right. And nobody was like, oh, nah, L, we don't want to hear you no more. Yo, if you can drop Booming System and Around the Way Girl and Cheesy Rap Blues and Jingling Babies, if you can still make music, we got nothing but open arms for you. Now, when you start coming whack, you know what I mean? Then it's kind of like cats is looking straight. So, I mean, I think that I know for me, that's just it. Like, you know, after a while, Grandmaster Flash, it was like, yo, y'all got to stop dressing like it's 1985. Like, y'all niggas, y'all mofos are stuck. Like, y'all album covers still look like y'all about to go get in the ring with the Road Warriors. Like, y'all have to step up the fashion game. And we all get stuck. You know, some people get stuck in their era. But I think that's what it is. But I know for me, again, I don't know any hip hop head personally who has outgrown hip hop. I know casual listeners of hip hop who are like, you know, I don't listen to it anymore, you know, because it doesn't do anything for me. And it's not meaning that you have to like everything, you know, because Vern, I know you love Fonte. I know you love Little Brother, you know, and this is still new hip hop. I don't expect you to like everything, you know what I mean? Because there are some things that just don't fit right in people's spirits. You know what I mean? So, but if there is something that's out there, you know, so I think you downplayed a lot, bro. Like, you know, I'm still here, but I listen to. There is new stuff that you listen to.
That's true.
If it speaks to your, if it speaks to what you're going through, I tell people every day, if I didn't work in the hood every day, I may not like Griselda as much as I do. But if you work around crackheads and drug dealers all day, then guess what? Then somebody cooking coke may just be right up your alley. I'm sure if I was a lawyer, I would not like Griselda as much as I do. Not saying I wouldn't like them, but that's what it is. Now let's go on to the second part of her quote where she says, it's not my job anymore. For me, I kind of understood and was hoping that that's where she was going with the I outgrew hip hop. Meaning, hey, I used to be an A&R. People coming to me like, hey, who should I sign? And it's like, I can't tell you who to sign. Because even though we were the artists we loved, that were on Loud, because she's talking about Wu-Tang and Mobb Deep and the Alcoholics. And the Loud, to me, Loud had one of the greatest hip hop rosters in the history of the game. These mofos weren't pushing millions and millions of units. You know what I mean? But they were still relevant enough. So for me, what I got from that comment was like, it's just not my job. I couldn't sign nobody today because I don't know what the youth want from that. Like, I wouldn't have just signed to Meg Thee Stallion. I'd make a horrible A&R right now. I would have lost my job because Meg Thee Stallion would have came through and I would have been like, nope. And then Migos would have came through and I'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Nope. And so all the biggest artists, probably outside of a J. Cole, a Kendrick, and God forbid, I'm sorry, Portia, a Drake, I probably wouldn't have signed. You know what I mean? So from that aspect, I kind of got what she was saying, that like at this point at 2000, you know, 19 and she's like 54 years old, my ear isn't to the streets to sign anybody to a record label. Right. You know what I mean? Griselda is their own entity. They're their own deserted island. And what I was telling people earlier about Griselda is that independent movement couldn't have been done in the 90s. It was a different era back then. You know, like there was no internet. Like the bulk of what Griselda does is through the internet, you know, selling stuff online and downloads and all of that stuff and building the audience with social media. I mean, think about it. Wu-Tang, as crazy as they were, they needed a record label. You know, Jay-Z, he needed a record label. Like, even though it started with Rockefeller, it's still the goal was we need to get signed. You don't have that perspective now of you need to get signed. So even the Jay-Z, you know, still spending money from 88, rappers going broke trying to keep up with me, still needed a record label to push, whereas Griselda doesn't. So it's just a change in that. Porsche, what did you think about what she meant? Like, did you kind of fall back a little bit like, oh, okay, I get it. If she's talking about I've outgrown hip hop from a job perspective.
From a job perspective, yes, to a degree. So that was the most I kind of agreed. Well, I don't know, but I definitely agreed with that statement that she made. But my thing is she worked in the industry for a long time and she was very good at her job. And I feel like with that said, you know elements that people need. Yes, you don't have your ear to the street. Yes, you don't know what the youth are listening to at 54. I 100% agree with her. I think that's a very self-aware perspective. I think she has tremendous self-awareness. I love that she acknowledged that. But I also think she's sort of selling herself short because she does know talent. She does know elements that can be successful in the industry because she knows the industry and she knows the industry very, very well. And she has a lot of connections inside of the industry. So when she said that, I was like, well, I would trust her judgment on that. She doesn't trust her judgment. I would trust her judgment because I feel like she signed a lot of very successful people. So that's the only part, like I mostly agree, but then there's that little element where I'm like, well, you do know how to kind of pick them. You do know the qualities that are needed. You do know the skill set. And then a part of me also thought, well, if people from way back when, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when record labels were such a thing, stayed in those positions, maybe the quality of hip hop would have maintained itself rather than going to what it is now, where people are just repeating one line to some horrific beat that is drowning them out. You know what I mean? Like, what the hell is Drake ever talking about, for God's sakes? He's like,
here we go. Here we go.
The shot was coming.
Listen, I feel like Drake had this diary that he pulled out and was like, this is the time for this to go public. And he's just reading pages to music. Like, I just feel like if Sophia Chang was still at Jive or she was somewhere in the industry, bozos wouldn't get signed or bozos wouldn't be as successful as they are. That's just my personal opinion, but it is what it is.
All right, JP, what about you? Did that comment about as far as, I grew out of hip hop, it's not my job?
Listen, it makes 100% sense to me. Like, that's like most people probably wouldn't have been that self-aware. I think a lot of people would have remained arrogant. And be like, since I did, I can always do it. But I mean, like she said, it was started by the youth. It's a youth base. But like I said earlier, I feel like it's a shift. And for her being self-aware and like kind of bowing out from that perspective, I get it. I think now is a little different. I feel like as you get older, now you have options because a lot of the artists that were young then are older now and are still making music. So maybe you can figure out with those artists, maybe not signing new artists, but artists that are already established, still trying to navigate their career as they're getting older.
Good point.
That's something you can figure out with them as well.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I feel like that's an avenue to investigate.
Yeah, that's a dope point. That's a dope
very
point.
good point.
Vern, what about you?
So I agree with Sophia from this perspective, man. There's an energy needed to have your ear to the street and be at all the 3 a.m. Hole in the wall spots to find the next most deaf or whatever the case may be. And man, before this podcast, I was like, man, why am I tired? I'm like, and I said, oh yeah, I had to get up at 5:15 this morning to be at my high school at 7 to talk to some young cats. That's why I'm tired. So yeah, man, there's an energy that you just don't have. And then another thing that I applaud her on, you don't want to be that 47-year-old nigga up in the club with some skinny jeans on and a floral print shirt and some Lego block looking $1,200 Balenciaga tennis shoes, trying to, you just don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be flex. Still on the radio, man. Let somebody else have that spot. I mean, all respect due to John Lewis and everything that you did, for the movement. But man, pass that baton to somebody else with some new ideas and some new energy. And to your point, Porsche, be a consultant. I've got this energy. I mean, I was listening to this sports thing today, and they were talking about this old coach came back and started coaching in the NFL, and he hired this 81-year-old dude who used to train Manning way back in the day just to be a sounding board for some ideas and stuff. So that's the next level of growth. To your point, Jay Pass, I
Yeah.
think in the industry, as the artists get older and the A&R and the executives get older, there's still room for you, but it's just a different lane
Yeah.
that we have to explore. And you got to think, this is growing. There never been 40, 45-year-old MCs that, in this vast amount, and 50-year-old MCs as there are now. So it's a whole new level, and we all learning it together.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, JP, I mean, the point about trying to help artists who are older navigate now, I think is huge, because I think most artists are doing a horrible job.
Yes,
Older
they are.
artists,
Yes, they
I
are.
feel like, are doing a horrible job of navigating everything right now, because it's like a new album drops and then you literally hear nothing about it ever again. Like Black Moon just dropped the album, 2 weeks ago?
Right.
I heard people talking about it Friday night, Thursday into Friday night. And then Friday, I haven't heard a word about that album since.
Right.
You know what I
saw
mean?
a video and that was it.
Yeah.
Cocoa Brothers.
Yeah, same thing with the Smith and Wesson, and all the ninth stands was like, oh, this is the greatest album ever. And I always tell people love to say it's the greatest album ever. Then at the end of the year, it never ends up on nobody's top 5 list or whatever like that. Right. But I feel like that is what a lot of older artists are struggling with. And I think that's shit. You may be on something, JP.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like I said, as we get older, we have priorities. So any attention or money that we would spend on an artist that we love, when we prioritize, we don't get to that artist right away, because we have to think about our bills, our kids, our families, whatever, first sustaining before we get to our music. That's just natural progression. So it's kind of trying to figure out how to market to the grown people who are your age that still love hip hop and listen to hip hop and want to go to shows and things like that. Like, there's a bunch of new artists that I enjoy, but I'm never going to their shows. You know what I'm saying? I'm never going to their show. I'm not going to do that. But certain artists, I would go to their show. So, I mean, it's just trying to figure out and kill, how it's so many, like Pusha T. We've talked before, he's had one of his best years ever the past year and a half, and he's he's like 42.
Right.
It's the biggest year he's probably had in his whole career. You know what I'm saying? There's something to be said about that. There's an audience for it.
Right. And I mean, I think that's a perfect segue into the quote of hip hop is more youth based than any other genre. It's made by the young, for the young, and about the young. For me, I totally disagree with that, because Bun B said that too before, that, hip hop is for the youth, give it to them. I feel like hip hop is for whoever loves the culture.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you love the culture, do what you do. Keep doing it. Now, if you want to say rap music is for the youth, I can give you that. You know what I'm saying? But the culture, to me, I mean, you just said it, JP, that's a beautiful segue into it. Pusha T just had his biggest year. Talking about the same shit he's been talking about for the past 20 years. You know what I mean? You look at Griselda. I mean, they just signed a deal with not Rocker. What is Jay's Rock Nation? Rock Nation. They just signed a deal with Rock Nation. These dudes are in their 30s.
Right.
These are ex-cons in their 30s. You know what I mean? They just signed a deal with Eminem, before that. It's like, so I can't sit here and say hip hop is for the young, made by the young, told to the young, because we're still here. You know what I mean? And I don't know, maybe Sophia, maybe her circle is different. We all have a different circle. And I said, what are you going to say, Mark?
Mainstream hip hop is geared.
Well, right. Well, mainstream.
Or
You're
rap,
right.
or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mainstream. But I would think that, and again, I may be wrong. I would think because she was with Wu and signed Fushnikins and Tribe and Jive, that she's not Souls of Mischief, that's not really the mainstream hip hop, because there's still so much great music that's out here, whether it's the Retropolitan album with Sky Zoo and Pete, whether it's the Benny album, whether it's the Little Brother album that just dropped, whether it's the Rhapsody album that just dropped, that there's still a lot of great hip hop that's out here. And I don't know Rhapsody's age, but I mean, I know Sky Zoo ain't no spring chicken.
Rhapsody ain't spring chicken either.
Yeah, so I mean, these people that we're naming, I mean, if I think off the top of my head, what'll probably make my albums of the year, we're talking Jim Jones, El Capo. Jim ain't no new jack. We're talking Benny. Benny ain't no new jack. We're talking Skyzoo. That ain't no new jack.
Nope.
We talking about RJ Payne from Philly. He just posted something like, yo, it's the 30 and 35 and over club. We getting it. Like, don't think we left out. You know, so just off the top of my head, my top 5 albums of this year is not from nobody young. What you gonna say, Vern?
Because so that leads to a different question as well. We're all gonna be geared towards more mature hip hop because we're more mature. So do you think some of the artists that you name, a 22-year-old is bumping that stuff like we're bumping it?
Probably not, because I don't think it's geared for them. And here's the crazy part. I don't think most mature, I got some bougie friends, y'all. So I got some bougie friends. I'm not even going to hold you. Okay. I got some friends. And it's funny because I wrote this down to not forget this, because it's like I said earlier, I know a person who has a piano in their house. This person can't play a lick, doesn't want to know how to play a lick, but a piano represents a luxury. It represents, like, you know, I've got money, y'all. You know, look at this grand piano. Like, and I guess it's always bothered me, because I love hip hop so much, that if I have an SP1200 in my living room, do you think anybody, like 90% of people come to my house and not gonna be like, oh my God,
yeah,
it's an SP. Like, that's a killer. I know.
They wouldn't even know what it was. They wouldn't know what it is.
They like, my nigga,
machine.
My nigga, why you got an answering machine in the middle on your island? Like, what is wrong with you, nigga? You ain't got voicemail? It's like, you know, but and it's so funny that my closest friends, in real life friends that like I've grown up with, aren't hip hop heads, but that is how they would come to my house. And I wish that, because I don't think you have to be a jazz person to walk into somebody's house and say, man, that's a nice piano. And I get it. A piano, of course, looks nicer than an SP1200. But I'm just trying to say that, you know, I just wish hip hop was held after all these years. And sometimes I feel like Portia said, it's still a stepping stone. It's still not respected. You know, I know people who are like, Hill, I'm too mature for the old Pusha T. I don't know anything about coke. I've never tried coke. I've never, you know, snorted lines. Nigga, neither have I. But I mean, you know, but so I just think that the younger generation, and JP, you touched on it. I think now hip hop, since it's grown, it touches us all in different ways, you know. And it's the same thing with rock and roll. I always tell people, if you ask people of different age ranges, what is rock and roll to them, they're going to say something different. My mother may say Chuck Berry. Somebody else raised in the Midwest may say Bruce Springsteen. Someone else may say Bon Jovi. Someone else will say Poison. And you look at rock and roll now, and that's why you have heavy metal. So you know, oh, we talking AC/DC, we talking Poison, we talking Van Halen. Oh, Metallica. You know, oh, we're talking, you know, I don't even know, you may know, Vern. What would Bruce Springsteen's genre of rock be? Would that? I don't even know. But whatever it is,
I would say classic rock. I mean,
classic rock. Then he's there, and I don't know what Bon Jovi is, but they're there, and Chuck Berry and Little Richard, they're here. So I feel like that's what it is with music. You know, like it's not to say that my mother doesn't like rock and roll anymore, but she just likes Little Richard. Little Richard's not making new music, but not to say that she doesn't like, you know, rock and roll, whereas I think that's the same thing with hip hop. JP, you said it. Meg Thee Stallion to me just isn't it. I will tell you this. I was listening to some of her Tiny Desk concert, and I was a little intrigued. I was like, and I don't know if it's the live band. That's probably what
I think that's what it is, sir. Yeah.
I want to say that. I don't know what it is. I think it was the live band. But I was actually like, I may need to listen to this. And then I listened to some of the album, and I said, no, I need to listen to the NPR concert. Band, you know, I need to listen to the live band. But so again, and the thing is I'm always just about, it may not speak to me. You know what I mean? I know people who love Rhapsody's album. I think it was a good album. I give it 3.5. I know people who give it 5 mics. But again, at the end of the day, I still give Rhapsody her props, even though it doesn't speak to me. And I think that's the problem, is that I feel like if it doesn't speak to you, then we shit on it.
It's trash. You know? It's trash.
And that's not it. Rhapsody is far from trash. Like far. Mm-hmm. But that album just doesn't speak to me. And when we talked about it on the other show, I feel like, you know, Rhapsody and Ninth did a great job of marketing that album. Because here's the thing. If you say you don't like that album, then you're like racist. You're racist and you're sexist. Because don't you know that album is about the black woman's plight, and every song is named after black? You gotta like, they psyched you into liking that album. Like, I dare you to go in a room of black women and say you don't like the new Rhapsody album. I double dare y'all.
Yeah,
but
toxic masculinity, patriarchy, you get all that.
You get all of that. But tell me this. Porsche, do you agree with the comment that hip hop is made for the youth, by the youth, and to tell the youth story?
No, for all the reasons you said. So I won't repeat them, and like, I'll sum it up. Like, older people are still making music for an older demographic. I feel like hip hop, like anything, has its demographic. Hip hop is bigger than just the youth. And yes, there are youth in hip hop that are making music for the youth, their peers. But there are also older MCs that are making music for my age group. You know what I mean? So for that reason, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it, because I like Redman dropped that single, and that's the most grown I've ever heard Redman ever, you know? And I love that single. I think it's great. And I'm looking forward to Red's album. I hope there's more of that, because I think it really, for so many years, like, we saw a very silly, and Redman's one of my favorites because of his personality and how silly he is, and how he's so jokey all the time, and his personality shines on all his albums. But you know what? I heard this single, Redman's grown. He's talking about issues that are going on in this song. And I'm like, wow, like, that's pretty insightful for Red, because I never got that before. But he's grown and he's seen different things, and now he's addressing them. Common, same thing. Black America, again, is one dope album for me. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was great. So you agree that it's only made by the youth for the youth. It's not. It's not. And I think that we're selling hip hop short if we box it to that, because it's just so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger than that to me personally.
No doubt. JP, what you think?
Yeah, like I said before, man, I really feel like there's a shift, because, you know, when hip hop first started out, we were very, very young and just getting into it. And now, you know, some of our favorite rappers were just a little bit older than us, but we're really growing up. We were growing up with some of our favorite artists, and some of them have, you know, faded out, but some of them still make music. And I feel like I said, there's still an audience for it. There's still, like, listen, Black Thought to me is lyrically at his best right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he sounds great on the last few songs I've heard him in the past couple of years than, you know, even when he was young. And I always thought he was nice. I think he's nicer now than he's ever been.
Right.
And he's our age. So it's like, there's something to be said about that. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like there will always be an audience if you're good. If you're good,
there you go.
There'll be an audience for it. You know, it's kind of like, I'm like an analogy. Like, I think hip hop is starting to shift. We're starting to shift our attitude, how we feel about it being just youth culture, like how people feel about marijuana. You know what I'm saying? And how they feel, you know, alcohol was illegal at one time. You know what I'm saying? So there was a stigma with that too. I feel like the stigma is starting to shift now, because you're seeing all these older rappers and they're pretty successful. I mean, listen, the top people in the game, Kendrick, Cole, and Drake, they're in their early going to mid-30s now. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see what happens with them. I don't think they're going to fizzle out. They're going to continue to make great music.
And look at, sorry, just to kind of add to that, look at Kendrick's subject matter. Like, the subject matter of some of Kendrick's songs are brilliant. Like, To Pimp a Butterfly is a perfect example. I mean, every single song on that album is just so beyond his years that it speaks to the youth. It speaks to the older generation, or the old heads. So there are artists like that. And like JP and you said, Kill, if you're good, you will always have an audience. If you're good, you will always grab attention. And on the flip side, I mean, there's bozos in the industry that are grabbing attention that don't need to
right.
And that's just because of marketing and like, that's another show. But anyways, yeah, I had to add to that.
All right, and Vern, what you think about as far as the whole youth, is hip hop for the youth, by the youth, and telling the youth story?
So you got to go back again. Initially, that is what it was. I mean, you go back to the Bronx, you know, they cut the music out of the schools, you know, nobody playing instruments and stuff. So they made music out of what they had. So it was initially youth culture. But to Jay's point, it's grown from there because we're deep into it now, so it's evolving into something else, and it's new to all of us. So initially, yes, it was for the youth, by the youth, but the youth are no longer the youth. The youth are mortgage paying, college tuition paying
Exactly.
adults now. So yes and no.
Right. And see, I think that that's the great point, is that it was for that first generation, and that generation is before us. That generation is the 52 and over crowd. Right. That's the 52 and over crowd. Our generation was the next phase of hip hop. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like you said, that's how it began. But now we're talking about 40 years later. I don't mean to stereotype anybody, but I think a lot of these rappers are these younger cats are in it because there's a check involved. Hip hop has now become a viable means to support your family. JP, in our days, and Vern, in our days, it wasn't a viable means for anything. When I got my 2 turntables and a mixer in '84, when I was 10 years old, I wasn't in my brain thinking, okay, I could do X amount of parties and charge X amount of money, and then I could make X. I just wanted to DJ. I just saw Run DMC on American Bandstand, and Jam Master Jay had 2 turntables and a mixer. I wanted to get 2 turntables and a mixer. Like, there was nothing whatsoever. My man says the same thing about basketball now. Like, a lot of these mofos in the league don't even love the game. You know what I mean? I don't believe they love the game like the way the cats who came up in the 80s loved the game, because my man said it to me. He said, Kill, if somebody walks in your teen center, if an 8th grader walks in your teen center who's 6'2", what's the first thing you're going to say? You hoop. You know what I'm saying? Right. And if he says, no, I don't hoop, matter of fact, I like to sing on the choir. You know what 1 million people are going to tell him? Nah, nigga, you hooping.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
We forget the choir, nigga. This could be the way to get your family out the hood. This could be the way to make it happen. So you got all these players who are in the NBA who don't even love the game, but they're there because they were tall and they look like it was a meal ticket. Singing on the choir ain't no meal ticket. You know what I mean? Like one of my people's sent me a picture of him and his son is like 6'5" or something, and 16. I was like, he hoop? He was like, yeah, but he was like, killing the strength. He really likes fencing. And I was like, that's dope. Like, and he was like, yo, we're not pushing him for basketball. We're like, do whatever you want to do. But see, that's very rare that, that somebody's going to have a kid who's 6'5", who does hoop, but really his first love is fencing. Like, and you're okay with that. Like, most people are like, man, you better put that goddamn sword down and pick up that basketball and get out there on that court and get us that house. So I think now that there's a lot of people, I always tell people, if God came down right now and said, Kill, you know what? You're never going to sell a beat of any means to, you won't have to work. Nothing is going to change for me. I'm not selling no records. I'm not getting rid of the machine. Nothing's going to change. I feel like a lot of newer people who are in the game, if they got told that, it'd be a fire sale on eBay. Like, well, let me sell this mic. Let me sell these. What the point is all this? If I ain't gonna make it. But again, that's the difference between loving the culture, being a casual listener, and everything else for me. So I think the goal of what we're coming to is you can't outgrow hip hop if it's in you. There's a lot of casual listeners, and depending, like you said, Vern, there's a lot of hip hop that is for the young. I mean, I'm in a teen center over the summer. I mean, if it was Migos all day, it was Cardi B all day.
I pray for you, dog. Good Lord.
And that's what they listen to. And and again, and like Porsche said, that's a whole nother show. Because one day, I asked Nay, I was like, yo, what your people's listen to? And she played them. She was like, make style. I was like, play the song. And she was like, nah, I want to. I was like, nah, they go play a song. Like, we good. And like, we sat there and like talked about every lyric. And I'm like, this is why this is kind of messed up, because I feel like she's making sex sound like it's a sport. Like, it's like, it's nothing precious. It's nothing that you should hold on to. Like, one of my.
Hold on, man. Be careful. Yeah.
I'm about to.
You about to get the rants and the raves. All these folks going. Never mind. Keep going.
He's used to it.
He's used to it. But and again, it's just one of those things, because I work with teens, and one of my girls, she came to me and she said, Kill, I'm about to lose my virginity to this guy. I was like, well, how long have you known him? She was like 3 weeks. And I said, well, I'm old. I'm the old man at the club. 3 weeks of my day was nothing. Maybe 3 weeks in 2019 to a 16-year-old is like 30 years. You know what I mean? Like 3 weeks. Y'all nowadays may be like, I've known this nigga my whole life. And I mean, I'm dead ass. But I told her, I said, you know what? Here's the thing. If you met somebody 3 weeks ago and they asked to borrow your cell phone overnight, would you let them? And she was like, fuck no, I ain't letting nobody hold my cell phone.
Wow.
And I said, but you're about to give somebody your virginity that you've only known for 3 weeks. So your cell phone is more important than your virginity. And you know, it hit her, but it's shown that it's just showing me that not just hip hop, because I'm not that dude. I've never been that dude who just is hip hop. It's hip hop. It's media in general. You know, it's television. It's with these. You know, these kids are watching them. It was that game. What was that? It was a show with Lauren London on BET. I think it's called The Games People Play. And it came on at 9 o'clock. And, you know, I walked in the room and T was watching it. And it's like, this girl's like giving a guy a head. And I'm just like, God, things have changed. Like in our day at 9 p.m. Cheers came on. You know what I mean? Like I'm watching Cheers with Norm and nowadays you can see somebody, well, you can see the act of, you know, of what would be getting head at 9 o'clock. Like it's just so, you know, so, you know, I don't want to be that, and it's wild, and this may be a whole nother show, and I've argued with this with hip hop heads, but I'm like, I kind of see what Steve Dolores Tucker was talking about. I kind of see it. You know, I didn't see it at the time. I kind of was like, this old chick hating, but I listened to Niggas for Life a couple of weeks ago, and there was a couple of things that even made me go,
make me blush. Yeah, good Lord.
You know, I'm like, whoa, you killed the hooker and then threw her in the car and got like, really? Like you, so I'm just always mindful about this new hip hop because I always tell people, if you don't work with kids, a lot of times you don't see the effect that it has on kids. You know what I mean? And I think Common said it in one of his rhymes. He said something about, I think it was 6 Sense. He said something about he was on a bus and she heard this kid talking about how she could make niggas come and how many black, something that this music is, just music affects our kids. You know, so it's not the shit on the Meg Thee Stallions, because of course, JP, we had our Foxies, we had our Little Kims. You know, we had our, you know, swallowing babies and 380s and everything like that. Like, so I'm not saying that. I just think that we always kind of had a balance. You know what I mean? And I think like a lot of the kids nowadays don't really get to have that balance, because that kid who's listening to Meg Thee Stallion isn't then following that up with Fonte. You know what I mean? It's not like she's getting that balance of, okay, let me listen to some freaky stuff. Now let me come over here and get some Fred Hammond. Like, no, it's like freaky, you know, 24/7. So
also, I think just before we move on, but I also think that because hip hop is the most popular genre in the world, people gravitate to it. And a lot of people gravitate to what's mainstream because nobody in this climate of, you know, instant messaging and 240 characters and 2-second posts and boomerangs and things like that are digging for quality. They're just consuming what's available and what's in their face. So, and that's not where the quality's at. So in our time, it was different. We had people like Sophia Chang filtering this nonsense before it actually got to a label and then got recorded and then got released. So I feel like I know a lot of people say, yeah, well, there was a lot of trash back in the day too. There was, but not like this. Like there wasn't as much of it, like you said. And I think that's why it seems like it's for the young. It's just because it's so popular that, of course, the reach is way more than it was back then. I mean, I like when I was listening to hip hop, people were listening to like Vivaldi and Gershwin as well. Like there was classical music, like way classical music playing, you know? So they don't have that now. That luxury is not there. So they're just intaking all of this nonsense, and unfortunately there's a lot of it.
The entry point is much lower and easier than it was. And I said this on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. Gatekeepers were bad, but they were good too, because you couldn't just have a laptop or an iPhone and put out music. You had to know somebody who knew somebody that had a studio to actually make a song. Now you have laptop, you're a producer and an MC, and you
were handing out demos needing somebody to hear it, needing it to clear through that person to go further before it ever got anywhere where the public was going to consume it.
There you go. Now you just put that mug on YouTube and you out there.
Yeah, it's definitely the gift and the curse.
Yep.
It's crazy. And one of the things that Tip said at the end of the Beach Rhymes and Life documentary that always stood out for me was he was like, yo, I'm gonna do it to the death. Like Sammy did it to the death, Michael did it to the death. And that to me was like, that's one of those hip hop quotes that, you know, I need to put up somewhere, because I think that is always the stigma that, of course, in hip hop, you're old man, like, you know, retired. And it's like nobody else wanted Michael. If Michael was still here, we would still want, you know, at least the Michael tour. I don't know. Everybody's gonna say they want a Michael album. I don't know if I listen, but you know, people will want more Prince. People will want more tours. People will want more things. So, you know, we have to, you know, my prayer is one day we can get away from hip hop still being a fad, hip hop still being a stepping stone, hip hop still being I always tell people, if you want to do hip hop, you have to have somebody 40 and over on your team.
Yes.
Hip hop, I rap. You can do rap shit all day. But if you want to have a credible hip hop, whatever, label, magazine, website, whatever, you got to have somebody older to edit this shit before people are saying dumb things like, I forgot what somebody said, something like Rhapsody is the first person to do this. And I'm like, whoa, what, like, you know, what happened to Quentin Latifah? Like, you know, and there should be an editor that says, no, stop. You know, I feel like, and my man said this about Morehouse. He was saying something happens at Morehouse like once a week. They like all the people come in, they talk to you about how you're a Morehouse man, you the shit. You know, you're sitting right. You could have been sitting with Martin Luther King sad, and then that needs to happen at these hip hop places. Like there needs to be a storytelling time. Like all you young motherfuckers, come on in here, sit on down, like gather around, and I'm gonna tell you the story of the Juice Crew. Like here we go. Like educate these fools on what you're reporting on. You know what I mean? So that's that. Now y'all know what it is. What have y'all been banging this week? Oh, JP, I forgot this. You asked the question in the beginning. What hip hop artist? I think you said what hip hop artist was the first to make an album over 40? Yeah. That's a great question. Got to do the research on that. But one of the things that always was crazy to me, and JP and Vern and Porsche too, I don't know if it was like this for you. For some reason, I always thought the rappers that we grew up on were our age. Like when I'm 13 hearing Big Daddy Kane's Raw, I'm thinking, maybe he's 15, 16.
Yep.
This mofo's 24. You know what I mean? So like, I think a lot of us, like, I don't know who it is and I'm going to investigate this, but we may be shocked at who it is. You know what I mean? Like Google may have made Moment of Truth at 40. Like, I don't know how old.
You know what's interesting about that? And I know, you know, I mean, Jay-Z's been doing his thing for a long time. You know, he's an elder statesman in the game. But in a perspective thing, Jay-Z is only a year younger than Kane.
Wow.
But they're kind of considered in two different genres of hip-hop.
True.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's crazy.
Only a year difference between them. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
So go ahead. I just wanted to say that.
I mean, it's just bug because when I think Google died, he was 53. I was like, God damn, Google is 53? Like, yo, this nigga was like 32 with Words I Manifest. Like,
you know what? Google always felt like he was older, just for how he rapped and what he was talking about. He always felt older to me. He always felt older.
But I think once we do the research, we may be shocked at who that person is. Right. You know what I mean? Because Google very well could have been 40 years old when Moment of Truth dropped. You know what I mean? And, you know, because Jizza right now is 53. You know what I mean? So that means you figure 20 years ago when we were in school and we're 18, he's already like 26, 27. You know, and again, I'm always thinking Aldi Buckshot is my age and Steel and Tech are my age. And, you know, again, like you said with Google, like, of course, I always felt Chuck was older. But even Chuck D, you know, I'm 12 listening to Rebel Without a Pause. I'm like, okay, maybe Chuck's 17, 18. Chuck was in college about to graduate.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, again, you know, I grew up thinking these rappers were all young, and they're relatively still young, but not our age. So what have y'all been banging this week? Porsche, what have you been listening to, miss?
Gangstar. That took me a while to get past so that I could listen to other things, but I managed to get around. So Gangstar took most of my always gets the replay. I love that album so much, except for Neo's part that kills me. But anyways, and then
I like
and
that song.
I like the track. I just wish Neo's part could get deleted from it.
Oh,
Yo,
Like,
God.
the wildest part about Neo's part, I didn't read the credits. I thought that was a girl singing. That's
Oh,
the wild
really?
part. When I first heard it, I was like, "Who is this girl singing?" And,
Like,
and then I saw it was Neo.
when
I
I
was like,
when I saw it was Neo, I was like, wait, let me just play that back. And then because I actually really like Neo a lot, but on this, I don't know what he was trying to do. It just didn't work for me. So I've been listening to the Gangstar album, Brother Ali album. I gave Hitler Wears Hermes 7 a spin, and then I actually listened to the RJ Payne Leatherface 2 album, which is a whole experience. Like, if people have not heard this album, it is an experience.
Is it good or bad? Y'all know I love RJ Payne, but I haven't listened to
RJ Payne's this album is wow. How do I describe it? So it is like an audio horror movie, and it is wild. Like, maybe I'm hyping it up a little bit, but for me, like, he's in the category of like one notch above Benny for me for mood music. I always call it mood music.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah, and
RJ Payne is a monster. He's out of Philly. I've loved his last 2 albums.
Brilliant. And what I love about the album is he sounds like he's battle rapping the whole time. And I love that. With all of these really horror movie type backdrops, and it is just an experience. Like, I really want everyone to listen to it because it's fantastic. I haven't heard an album so cinematic like that. And they actually have he has the beginning of the album when I listened to it, I was like, wow, this kind of is going to play out like a movie. And sure enough, 2 seconds later, you hear that opening movie thing from Universal or whatever it is. You know, that big like sound, like that orchestrated sound that opens a movie that comes on, and I was like, here we go, like this is about to go down. So it was cool.
with that cosign, that because I've been banging Gangstar all week, but I was like, let me go to this West Side next. But with that, RJ's gonna jump over West Side, so I'm gonna
if you guys listen to the RJ Payne album, hit me up and let me know on Twitter what you thought of it, because I don't know if I'm going to be the only one that had this type of experience, but I was just like, I literally felt like I was transported on set of like the wildest horror movie ever. There is like chainsaws in the background. It's like you could hear the blood spatter. I'm like, the hell is going on? Like, it was wild. So check it out. Let me know what you think. It's dope.
All right, JP, what you been banging?
I'm still. Wait, let me check my phone because I always have a bunch of. I'm still banging Bandana. You know, I love that. Let's see. I listened to Gangstar. I've been listening to that for the past few days. I really like that. I went to the West Side Gun joint. That's pretty decent. The Statute of Limitations with Smoke DZA and Benny. I like that. I've been listening to that. What else? Metropolitan. Little Brother, I play every day.
Yes, sir.
That's one of my favorite albums.
Yes, sir.
Like,
yes,
of
sir.
the year. Like, every day I play that album. Every day. Our boy Yao, I listen to that album pretty often. Like, it's one of my favorite albums of the year. I had to hit him up and tell him, yo, it's a great project. And as far as the new generation, YBN Corday, his album is incredible to me. I listen to that pretty often too. So that's what I'm banging.
No doubt. What about you, Var?
I listen to Gangstar, Bandana, and Kill Man. You did something, but I listen to Daytona again. I listen to Push a lot more now.
Nice.
Like Jay said, May the Lord watch.
Yo, don't you don't get me in trouble with wifey. Don't have wifey like
they
nigga
got clean,
why you get
they got clean versions that I listen to.
I don't want your wife looking like see you fucking hanging out with him.
Hey, man, you know what I like? What it's crazy. What that sound push back. You know that little sound.
Hell yeah.
It's cinematic. But May the Lord watch. For all you 40-year-old heads that need to get active, May the Lord watch is 37 minutes. Get on a treadmill for 37 minutes.
Incredible.
You know what I mean? Just, for real. So you listen to something dope and you getting that cardiovascular up. So that's this week. Yeah.
Vern is the apartment 5B resident doctor, and
There you go. There you go.
No doubt. And for me, it's been the Gangstar. Like whenever new music comes out, I like spending a whole week with just one album.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I've just been straight Gangstar. And on the flip of that, it's crazy, man. I've been old school. Stephanie Mills. I've been listening to the whole album. You know, I don't know. Like I was on Twitter and somebody posted, what was it? You're putting a rush. No, I feel good all over. And I just, those Stephanie Mills songs take me back to the 80s. It takes me back to 7th grade in 87. And then from I Feel Good All Over just came Something the Way You Make Me Feel, and then the Home album. So I've been banging a lot of Stephanie Mills this week. And Gangstar, good album. Probably won't make my top 5 of the year, but, definitely it's the best dead rapper album I've heard in probably.
Solid effort.
Yeah, just because, I'm so used to dead rapper album. That's why I wasn't excited about it, because I was just like, and he's gonna be old verses. But then once I heard, what he had to do to get the verses, and and everything like that, and just from the fact of, a lot of the songs, especially that Bad Name. Like Bad Name literally sounds like Guru was in the studio. It doesn't sound like Primo had to find the acapella and make the beat around it. Like it just fits perfectly. And my favorite joint is that joint Hitman with Q-Tip.
Oh, with Q-Tip. That hook is hilarious.
Yeah. I love it.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. And I don't know if y'all read this piece, but they were saying how Tip had just had throat surgery.
Oh, word?
And he was saying, I want to get you on the album, but I know you can't do a whole verse. Maybe you could just do a chorus. And then Tip was like, well, let me do this and let me freak it like this because my voice is raspy. So maybe it'll come across, doper than that. So that was it. Let me ask you this, Porsche. I know I had to ruin your life the other day when I explained to you that Premier's #1 choice for that song.
That was yesterday. God, I want to forget that.
JP, have you heard?
What?
That the song that J. Cole is on, that Preem wanted to get Drake on there first.
Yes, I did. I saw that in the interview. I did see that. That's crazy.
Tell me this, brother. How do you feel about that? And the reason why I asked that is because I was on Twitter and somebody was like, well, I mean, who cares? But I'm like, I just feel like having Drake on a Gangstar album would have been the equivalent of having Mace on a Gangstar album back in 1997.
I get it from that perspective, but I feel like I think Drake could really rap. Like I've heard him on several songs.
I agree.
He could really rap. And I know with him getting that from, like, he would have really rapped on it. So, but I absolutely think J. Cole was a way better fit. Way better. Like, it's not even a question. Way better fit.
Said he would have really rapped on it. Would he have rapped, or would he have like cried, or would he have like just?
See, you're jaded, so it's different. It's different.
I'm not jaded, man. I just.
Here's the funniest thing. Here's the funniest thing. One of my old boys was like, maybe Royce would have wrote it for him, and that's just hilarious too. He's like, maybe Royce would have wrote the rhyme.
And he would have sang Royce's lyrics.
But I think the wild part to me was just like, and my man hit me on Twitter and was like, yo, do you think Primo will get backlash from, Drake and TDE for putting this story out there? Because to me, that's a little fucked up. Like, yo, we're doing a Gangstar album, and for Drake to be like, well, for 40 to be like, oh, well, Drake's getting ready for the Scorpion tour, he doesn't have time. I'm just like, yo, you don't have a day from this.
Drake has a God complex. All celebrities have a God complex, but then they reach this level and then it becomes like exponentially God complexed. And I feel like Drake, he said that out of arrogance. And I don't know, to sound busy, like, oh, I turned down Premier. I don't know if he wants that under his belt, but like,
here's the wild part. But K. Dot did it too. He went to Kendrick and said, hey, can I get a verse? And they was like, oh, Kendrick's kind of in album mode and he's focused. And I mean, again, I'm not an MC, so I'm just stuck on the point of how does we're naming Drake, Cole, and Kendrick as like the three, amigos or whatever like that. I'm like, to me, that's an honor. I don't understand how you are that. And again, maybe I'm not an MC. So maybe when, and again, Kendrick is a different kind of MC. So maybe I feel like with Kendrick and his albums, he may be like an actor. And I've heard about actors who, when they get in a role, they don't leave. Like after they say cut, they're still in their role. Like they stay in this role the entire time that they're doing this movie. So if that's Kendrick, I kind of get that, but I kind of just felt some kind of way like, yo, my nigga, like you're asked to being part of hip hop history, and you're working on a tour. Like, nigga, you ain't learning dance steps, my nigga. Like, this ain't Janet. Like, you got a whole dance finale. Like, nigga, you walking backstage across a fucking stage. Like,
well, the way I kind of, what I thought? I thought to myself, well, here's the thing. Drake isn't writing his own stuff. So he's going to have to call and be like, can someone come up with a verse? Like, it's got to be good enough to be on a premiere joint and then a Gangstar joint. And people were probably like, no, man, I can't do that. I can't do that. And so he was like, forget it, I can't. Like you need to just decline.
She's cold-blooded.
I was just about to say,
you know what? If that's the reason, I will accept that from Drake. I will be like, you know what? You did us all a favor because I wouldn't have checked out the album. I'm telling you that right now. Wow. Like I would have been like, Drake's on the album. No, thank you. Wow. Not even a skip. I just would have not checked it out. So,
hey, man.
JP.
Out for me.
Yo. JP, she like, what tip say do him lawnmower style? Like, she just hit him lawnmower style.
Wow. Hey, man.
What were you about to say, Bern?
All due respect, Primo is one of the greatest, but he ain't resonating necessarily like that to the masses in today's game. I mean,
I can get that. I get that.
You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
But Drake reached out, like he was on the last
Scorpion album, right? He did it on the Scorpion album,
right? Yeah. So he got his fill of Primo. So it's not the same honor necessarily. And I'm just
right.
At this point. Yeah.
Right. I just have a feeling, and maybe, and that's why I guess my man was like, do you think it'll be any backlash on Preem for telling these stories? Because call me crazy, I just have a feeling that if Outkast was in the studio, 3000 is rhyming, new Outkast album coming, maybe it's just me, I got a wild feeling Kendrick would have found the fucking time to make that album. Or Drake would have found the time to 3000 rhyming again. Oh, fuck yeah, I'm there. Like,
man, that's my point.
And maybe I'm wrong.
Who's clamoring over Premier Beats right now, bro?
But I mean, I get it. But I mean, Outkast hasn't had an album out in what, 10 years, 20, 15 years?
True, but I think their name, I mean, rings. Oh, we're just speculating. So let me just
right. We're just speculating. No. I know what you're saying. That Outkast has a bigger name. I'm just like, yo. How do you turn down like hip hop royalty? Like, even if you don't want to do it, like, even if you're like, I was never a big Guru fan, or I'm not taking shots at Yao. Yao thinks there are 150 rappers better than Guru. I would hope that if Guru saw, if Preem saw Yao at a Knicks game, was like, yo, can I get you on a new album? I think Yao would like. I'm just like. It's just a level of respect that, even if you're not checking for Preem, even if you don't think the beats are still banging, like, my nigga, this is Gangstar, it's the first Gangstar album. But I get it. I get it. But like I just said,
Q-Tip had throat surgery and he was like, I'll make it work.
How old is Q-Tip? How old is Q-Tip? That's
why I'm saying I feel like Drake and Kendrick had a level of arrogance about them. I'm sorry.
I just don't think it rings out to Drake and the Kendrick the same way it does to Q-Tip or somebody our age.
I see what you're saying, because Preem said in the interview, like he was like, Talib was like, yo, I gotta be on this album. He was like, look, the only thing I got is a slow track. You usually don't rhyme slow too. Like, I don't give a fuck what it is. I'll rhyme on whatever you give me. Like, so I think you're right that there's just the level of people who are our age understand the legacy. You know what I'm saying? And this may be a situation I always tell people, these young mofos who want to read a book and then come argue with us old heads, that it's like, I'm like, you weren't there. Right. So even though I give Drake and I give Kendrick a lot of respect for making me, like, Kendrick had Kid Capri on his last album. Who the hell Kendrick's age know who Kid Capri even is? Right. So I give them credit for, doing the knowledge, but there is something different about doing the knowledge and being there. You know what I mean? K-Dot wasn't there when Mass Appeal came out. And K-Dot probably, I don't know how old he was when Primo was in his lane and his bag from 94 to 98. Like, so I see what you're saying, Vern, that even though there may be a respect there, that it's like, I have to decline that. You know what I mean? So what were you going to say, Porsche?
Nothing. I'm just so annoyed. Drake kills me. God,
You know,
the person I wish would retire. It's Drake.
with that, I mean, Drake. We know how you feel about Drake. It's the same way. Like they have the rookies in NBA ask them to quote a Biggie lyric. They can't do it. No, these dudes can't quote, bruh. They were embryo when Biggie was big. I mean, we know how we feel about him, but you can't expect certain these young kids to know certain things unless you teach them.
Right. And that's the wild part, because that's the shit Kill started on Twitter this week. What happened was, now Porsche, I think you was in on this too.
Oh, great.
Somebody,
of course I was.
Somebody said something about the Diplomats being the worst group ever.
Oh God! And then the Saint Lunatics, and then
I said, well, what about the Saint Lunatics? And I don't know where they came from, but they came like a Popeye's chicken sandwich was on my timeline, because them Saint Lunatics came, they was great, and they did this and they did that, and the Saint Lunatics was this and all of this stuff. And I was like, God damn, I'm like, number one, y'all a bunch of babies. I got babies on my timeline, number one. Right. But the kicker was, JP, the kicker was when somebody told me Nelly has done more for the hip hop culture than Rakim. And believed it and stood on it and literally said the tweet. I need to find the tweet, because that's one of the tweets I want to put up in the wall of shame. It literally said something like, Nelly has done more for hip hop than with that other guy you mentioned. Like, you didn't even say his name.
That's an age thing. That's all.
Yeah.
You can't even take that seriously.
Right. But the reason that came back up is when Portia was saying, about the age, and the guy said, well, another person jumped in and was like, well, goddamn, I ain't 55. I don't know who Rakim is. And I'm like, you don't have to be 55 to know who Rakim is. My daughter's 14 to know who Rakim is. Mm-hmm. I said, knowing about Rakim and knowing about good music isn't about your age. It's about who raised you.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's really what it just comes down to. It's not about age. It's about who raised you, Right. So it's one of those things where you're right, Vern. I agree with you. I think it just kind of hurt my heart. That's like, damn, like, y'all don't even want to be on. And Vern, you made a great point where you're like, well, look at Q-Tip, how, Q-Tip and them came up together, and To Live was probably right under that Gangstar thing of, oh my God, Gangstar. Like, I don't care what I have to do to get on this album. I'm there. We're like,
they were raised by the people who grew out of hip hop.
Right. There you go. There you go. There you go. Message. So that's wild. So Porsche, here's a good thing. The hip hop guys were with you. Drake did not make the album.
I was just gonna say that. I am so glad. Like, honestly, when I read that, I was so upset that
as soon as I read Drake, I didn't even finish the rest of the article. I was like, I'm sending this to Porsche right now. I'm not even gonna finish the rest of the article.
I was like, I cannot believe, like, I was kind of like, oh geez, what the hell was Premier thinking? And then I was like, I'll just, like, overlook that. And then I was like, thank God. When I read he declined, I literally clapped. I was like, thank the Lord he declined. Like, wow, that was so close.
All right, here's something that I thought about today that I want us to do, because of course we got to do our, it's November, so in a month we'll be doing the end of the year show, favorite albums, all that stuff. I want y'all to be mindful, if you can. I know it's the end of the year, so it may be too hard, but thinking about what albums you played the most this year and seeing if that lines up with your top 5 albums of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Because I at first I'm like, okay, this album is my number 1 album of the year, but then why am I playing this album that I have ranked number 3 more? And what does that mean? Like, I don't even know what it means. Like, does that mean that number 3 should be number 1 because I play it more? Does that matter? Should it be your number 1 album of the year is the album you play the most? Like, how do we define what makes our album of the year?
Favorite doesn't mean best.
Right. So I guess I'm trying to figure out how to shape that, and what that looks like and why. Like, for some reason, and I don't know why, whenever, and I'll get slandered for this by half of my timeline, whenever I want to hear Nas, I grab It Was Written first.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Does that mean I like it more than Illmatic? And why don't I grab Illmatic first if I think it's better than It Was Written? Or when I ever want to hear some Jay-Z, I never grab Reasonable Doubt first. I grab American Gangster first. But if you ask me what's my favorite Jay-Z album, I'll tell you Reasonable Doubt. But then why don't I grab Reasonable Doubt first? So these are things I don't even know the fucking answer to. You know, I'm like questioning myself, but I'm just interested because when people are like, oh, this is my favorite album of the year. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, but is it the album you play? I played The Plugs I Met more than any album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like easily more than any album this year. It's The Plugs I Met. You know, but I would have probably said it looks like Retropolitan may be my number one. I don't know. It's kind of all in the like, but I play The Plugs I Met more than anything and I guess it may be up to you. Like maybe the question I'm going to be asking is that how you judge what is your number one album of the year? You know, is it based off of what gets played the most? How do you pick? Why do you pick this album to be the number one album of the month? So just think about it because we got a month, you know, before, you know, December comes. And I think probably nothing really drops probably after like the first or second week in December. So unless something crazy pops out the woodwork, you know, we kind of got what we got, you know, for this year. You know, maybe they'll throw it out. I heard that the Black Star album is done with Madlib.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And they're just trying to figure out when to put it out. So, you know, who knows? We may get another Madlib joint, you know, like Bandana, you know, before the end of the year. But unless something crazy happens, we kind of got what we got, you know, and just trying to figure, like you said, JP, you play Little Brother every day.
I play it every day.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But is that going to be your number one album? You know, and then not that you have to answer it, but
yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Like, how does that work? All right, y'all, JP.
You know, I wish people would stop talking about stuff they're doing and just do it. This album is finished. We got 1,500 tracks. So man, shut up and put the album out or don't. But don't talk about it. That's just my pet peeve.
I feel you, and I wish that would happen too because now that I know it's done, now I'm like waiting for it. You know what I mean? And it may not come for another
3 years.
You know, 3 years. You know,
High said he's got stuff finished. Put it out, bro.
Yeah. And then I mean, and then I do enjoy that part of the industry now where it just comes out. Like, you know, I think with Little Brother, it was just like out of nowhere. It was like Little Brother new album coming out.
Yeah, they
done,
did that.
You know what I mean? And yeah, you know, and so I enjoy that. JP, give them everything where they can get at you. Where's the music? Everything.
On IG, you can catch me at JPaz Music, JPAZ Music, and Twitter as well. Or you can go to the website JPaz Media, JPAZmedia.com.
Tell them about some of the music you got.
Oh, I dropped a instrumental EP earlier this year called Listen. It's free if you go to the website JPazmedia.com. Click on download and you can just download it for free. Just put in your email, download it for free.
All right, no doubt, no doubt. Porsche, give them everything, Miss 23.
Just at Shayla Porsche on Twitter.
All right, Vern, give them everything. If you're looking for a house, I know all y'all are Trae Young fans now. Everybody wants to go to Atlanta. Tyler Perry got the studio out there.
Right.
You are moving because there are a lot of people moving to Atlanta right now. A lot of actors and actresses are moving to Atlanta. You got to see my man Vern right here, the closer, to get that house. Vern, where can they get at you, man?
Instagram at V the Lone Closer, Twitter V Chandler 10. But hey, man, Kill, I didn't even tell you this. I got a polka bossa nova mixtape coming out, man. I'm excited about it.
Yo, that's right up there. That's right up there with the time that you started playing the trombone on the porch. That is right there. I can't wait to hear that new mixtape, man. I'm dying to hear that.
Polka and bossa nova, man. It's a mashup. It's gonna be dope.
It's a mashup. I got you. I got you. Yo, before we go with me, this is one of what I'm reading right now. Prince, The Beautiful Ones. You know, his memoirs. He had started it right before he passed away. The guy he was writing it with still put it out. So this is what I'm reading this week. Porsche, Penny just hit me today. I don't know if you saw the tweet. There's a book out about the history of the Juice Crew. So, you know, Penny was like, yo, next book for the book club. I'm like, yeah, let's get it. Let's go. So we got that. I'm not sure.
Can you send it to me?
Yeah. As soon as I find the link, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
And maybe we could do that for the next book club. You already know it is with me, Kill 889. Twitter, IG, We'll Make Beats for Food. As always, I appreciate the hell out of y'all. I will check y'all next week.
Yeah, guys.
Hey, all right. Yo, next week we are